Science fiction has long been employed as a vehicle for social commentary, often because the remote, fantastic settings we find in science fiction stories permit us the distance necessary to consider ideas more objectively than we otherwise might. Isaac Asimov and Edgar Rice Burroughs explored the influence of religion in their writings. Star Trek tackled issues like racism and man fading in the shadow of the machine. Rod Serling addressed the themes of paranoia and fascism in some of his most famous Twilight Zone episodes. Countless other examples abound. In the creation of Star Wars, George Lucas was also motivated to examine certain issues, particularly how democracies give their power over to strongmen and become empires. Lucas was fascinated by the stories of men like Caesar, Napoleon, and Hitler, and how each came to power in his own way. At the time, the United States had just gone through the Watergate crisis and had been forced to retreat from Vietnam. The country was asking itself some hard questions about leadership and its role in the world, and Lucas wove his thoughts about these issues into the storyline of Star Wars. In the prologue to the original Star Wars novelization, published under George Lucas's name but actually ghostwritten by Alan Dean Foster, we read the following snapshot history of the Galactic Empire. Once, under the wise rule of the Senate and the protection of the Jedi Knights, the Republic throve and grew. But as often happens when wealth and power pass beyond the admirable and attain the awesome, then appear those evil ones who have greed to match. So it was with the Republic at its height. Like the greatest of trees, able to withstand any external attack, the Republic rotted from within, though the danger was not visible from the outside. Aided and abetted by restless, power-hungry individuals within the government and the massive organs of commerce, the ambitious Senator Palpatine caused himself to be elected President of the Republic. He promised to reunite the disaffected among the people and to restore the remembered glory of the Republic. Once secure in office, he declared himself emperor, shutting himself away from the populace. Soon he was controlled by the very assistants and bootlickers he had appointed to high office, and the cries of the people for justice did not reach his ears. Having exterminated through treachery and deception the Jedi Knights, guardians of justice in the galaxy, the imperial governors and bureaucrats prepared to institute a reign of terror among the disheartened worlds of the galaxy. Many used the imperial forces and the name of the increasingly isolated emperor to further their own personal ambitions. Originally, Emperor Palpatine was not conceived as a Sith Lord, a powerful user of the dark side of the Force. This came later after Star Wars proved a phenomenal success and it was necessary to further develop his character. Initially, he was simply another in a long line of Caesars, Bonapartes, and Hitlers, a crafty, charismatic, and ambitious man who exploited a time of instability to consolidate his grip on power, ultimately being overcome by the bureaucracy that he himself had created. Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, Han Solo, and the band of rebels opposing Palpatine and his galactic empire represent every underdog force that has ever resisted imperial tyranny with the ultimate hope of restoring democracy. Today, the Star Wars franchise largely focuses on world building, action sequences, interpersonal drama, and flashy space battles. These are the elements that tend to draw us into the story. But if the franchise is to have a lasting impact beyond its mere entertainment value, we would be wise to remember the larger story behind these popular elements. At its core, Star Wars is a cautionary tale and a reflection of the cycles of history presented in a sci-fi fantasy setting. As such, it necessarily presents the question, even if the rebels succeed and the Empire is overthrown, will those who inherit the new Republic ultimately not themselves fall prey to the temptation to consolidate power and thereby become the very thing they fought against? As Britain's Lord Acton once famously expressed it, power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Great men are almost always bad men, even when they exercise influence and not authority. Still more when you superadd the tendency or the certainty of corruption by authority. The question that Star Wars ultimately leaves us with then is simply this: whether we confront the corruption of power on the scale of empires, or merely within ourselves in the form of personal ambition, will we somehow learn the lesson and find a way to break the cycle?